Oh, hello. Hope you had a great Boxing Day. Here I am with another video, and it's a long time since we've had a faction rundown to do, but here is the Blades of Khaine Kill Team rundown. So, Blades of Khaine, what are they? Well, their archetype is complicated. You get Seek and Destroy, and then they have a special rule. So it says, this kill team can use the Seek and Destroy archetype or an archetype determined by the most common aspect keyword of its operatives. If two keywords are equally the most common, you can choose one of those keywords. Aspect keywords and their associated archetypes are as follows. So if you're have Dire Avengers as your most common, you have Security, Howling Banshees bring Recon, and Striking Scorpions bring Infiltration. Obviously, Recon's regarded as being one of the best, along with Seek and Destroy. Infiltration's regarded as being kind of pointless, with Security somewhere in the middle, generally speaking. Okay? And then you take an Exarch with the choice of weapons. We'll have a look at those on the next page. And then any combination of warriors. Okay, so you've got the Dire Avenger warriors, the Banshee warriors, and the Striking Scorpion warriors. So let's consider the Exarchs, okay? So first of all, we got the stat block. So all the Exarchs have the same stat block. They have 3 move, APL 3, a GA of 1, Def 3, a save of 3+. Generally speaking, the save is 4+ in this team, but the Exarchs have a save of 3+, and also an extra wound. They have 9 wounds. They also all have the Exarch special rule, so they can shoot or fight twice in the activation if they want to. So, really the only thing setting them apart is any special rules they have and any weapon combinations they have. So, let's start with the Dire Avenger Exarch. The Dire Avenger Exarch has, in common with all Dire Avengers, the Defensive Tactics ability. So, each time performs an Overwatch action, do not worsen the skill characteristic of ranged weapons as a result of performing the Overwatch action, right? So, ranged weapon-wise, he can take a Shuriken Catapult and Fists, the same as the rest of his squad, which seems like a bit of a waste of time. He does hit on 2+ with that Shuriken Catapult. He can take a Twin Shuriken Catapult, but for some reason, the Twin Shuriken Catapult still only has, basically it gains Relentless, but it hits on a 3, and the crit damage goes down to 3/3, so you're giving up a lot for that Relentless. On the Shuriken Catapult, Twin Shuriken Catapult there. I don't know if there's a typo there and it's supposed to be 3/4 damage, but as that stands, I can't see the point of why you'd trade hitting on 3s with and an extra crit damage just for Relentless. That seems really pointless to me. He's also got the option of a Dire Sword or a Power Weapon, which, yeah, I mean, Dire Sword's not bad. 5 dice hitting on 2s, 4/5, lethal 5+. Power Weapon is 5 dice, and Rending, 5 dice is 5 dice. Power Weapon, is 5 dice hitting on 2s, 4/6, lethal 5 up without Rending. So the Power Weapon's nice, but like, if you want a Power Weapon, take a Banshee. Like a regular old Banshee can take a Power Weapon. If you want an Exarch that does close combat, you've got 2 more options over here that do close combat just far, far better. So the only really unique thing that the Dire Avenger Exarch brings to the party is the Shimmer Shield. So you can take a Shimmer Shield and a Power Weapon. The Shimmer Shield, if this operative is equipped with a Shimmer Shield while friendly Blades of Khaine operative is within white of this operative, the friendly operative has a 4+ invulnerable save, which is fine. I just don't think that you're going to burn your one and only leader choice when we see some of the things the other leaders can bring for a sort of aura of 4+ invulnerable. You know, Kill Team's a mobile game. You don't really want to cluster up like that. So then we're going to have a look at the Striking Scorpion Exarch. So same stat line, and in common with all Striking Scorpions, the Striking Scorpion Exarch has Mandi Blasters. Now this is a really cool ability. So when the operative performs a fight action at the end of the select valid target step, the target suffers 2 mortal wounds. So every single time you fight, you do an extra 2 mortal wounds, which is pretty good. It's pretty good. So you can take a Shuriken Pistol and a Biting Blade. Okay. So the Biting Blade, 5 dice, hits on 2s, 5/6 Rending. fine. But instead, you could take a Scorpion's Claw, which is 5 dice hits on twos, 4/6, but with lethal 5 up and brutal. So one of the nice things about the Scorpion's Claw is both of those. In fact, you can get a crit of 8, which is amazing because there are a lot of 8 wound teams out there. Yeah, I think. Yeah. And you're more likely to get the crit with your lethal 5+ on the Scorpion's Claw. You might prefer the Biting Blade. Yes, you lose the lethal 5+ and the brutal. You gain that extra point of normal damage. So it's it's going to be 8 on a crit or 7 on a normal hit, which is pretty. Because you're getting those Mandy Blasters every single. I think when I wrote the slide, I thought the Mandy Blasters were only happening in the first fight action, but it's every time. You in the set value target. Oh no, it is only the first one. I was right the first time. So it's only when you first select the target. Okay, so yes, so with the Scorpion Claw, you're going to hit for 8 on a crit on your first crit, effectively, right? And then the Biting Blades will get you some other breakpoints. So with the Biting Blade, if you roll a crit and a normal, you could kill a 13 wound Legionary Leader. With the Scorpion's Claw, with a crit and a normal, you wouldn't quite manage it. So very occasionally that extra wound will come in. But then as someone on the Discord pointed out to me, like, you might have shot whatever you're charging and chipped off a little bit of damage. So these simulations or these sort of thinking about things in this way don't really. Like, if you want to get really deeply into the game, you build both, you roster both, you look at your opponent's army, you look at the wound values he has, you decide which you want to go for. But I very much think you're choosing between the Biting Blade and the Scorpion's Claw. If you wanted to just build one, I would build the Scorpion's Claw, because I like brutal, I like lethal 5 up. I think that they are worth the trade for the rending and the extra points of normal damage. But I can see where you'd want the Biting Blade. I can't see a massive argument for the twin chainswords. I can't see an argument at all for the twin shuriken pistols. They can get right out. Okay. Now the Banshee leader, the Banshee has in common with all Banshees the Banshee Mask ability. So when she performs the fight action, you worsen the weapon skill of the target operative weapons by 1 for that combat, which is not cumulative with being injured, which is pretty cool. I think just on the face of it, though, like the striking Mandy Blasters is just such an ability, right? So the striking Scorpion can have a Power Fist, effectively, that does 6 damage, but with Mandy Blasters, it's effectively doing 8, whereas the Banshee's best big killy weapon, the Executioner, her sort of Power Fist equivalent, it's exactly the same in terms of 5 hits hitting on 2s. It doesn't have brutal, it only has lethal 5 up, and it's 3/7 instead of 4/6. But without that, Mandy Blasters, there's just slightly different breakpoints. Obviously, against a 7 wound team, you'd take the Executioner. Also against 14 wound teams, because you could finish them in 2 crits, right? If you could survive the 1 hit back. Bear in mind, you've only got 9 wounds. But Mirror Swords are also really good. So Mirror Swords, 5 dice hitting on 2s, it's only 4/6, but you do gain Relentless as well, which just makes you a little bit more reliable, and you retain lethal 5 up, so you're more likely to get more damage through if the combat's going to go a bit longer. But remember that you are a 9 wound model, so you can't afford to take that many hits back in exchange, but you can take a hit or possibly 2, depending on what you're in combat with. The Triskelet is interesting. Like, I can see why you'd be tempted to take it. Like, yeah, it's rolling 6 dice, which is amazing. Hits on 2s. 3/4 damage, but reap 2 and rending. Like, if your opponent lets you get a ridiculous thing where you get to do that reap 2 on a whole pile of dudes and you have 6 dice, it could be flipping fantastic. But maybe on Insta Dark against a 7 wound team, you want to take the Triskelet just to try for it because it's funny. But I think generally against a 7 wound team, you're going to go for the Executioner to get the one shot rather than try and hope that they bunch up and you can take the and you can get more wounds with Triskelay. But there is a certain value to taking it and then reminding your opponent, not trying to play mind games at all, just don't want to gotcha you. I've got this thing which can do this, and then they'll be constantly thinking, oh, I've got to space out my dudes. Oh, and that can have, an advantage all on its own, even if you don't get that big hit off with it. But then you are sacrificing a really good assassin piece to play, to not play mind games, as it were. I mean, it's a tough one, isn't it? Because if you remind them to avoid the gotcha, right? If you don't remind them, you're gotchaing, and if you constantly remind them, you're playing mind games with them. There's not a right answer to that situation, is there? Let me know in the comments. The Triskelay does also have a shooting profile if you take it, so you can roll 4 dice hitting on 3s, 2-3, range red, torrent blue, rending. Like, it's not bad. Again, especially on Into the Dark, where your opponent's forced to bunch up a little bit, that could come in. Also worth saying, if you take a Triskelay, you have a choice of whether to take the power weapon or the shuriken pistol alongside it. If you have the Triskelay and you also take a power weapon, that gives you a lot of versatility if you end up in combat with something where you'd rather have the power weapon because they haven't given you that horde element, which, then you're only stepping down a little bit from the mirror swords. You've only lost Relentless, but you've gained the what if of the Triskelay. I mean, there is an argument for it. Let me know what you think in the comments between the options. We're going to look at the warriors. So the warrior versions are not that dissimilar to the Exarchs. They lose a point of wound, obviously, and they lose a point of save, and they generally lose a point of weapon skill as well. They go down to 3+. Honestly, the Dire Avenger is not that interesting. He has a shuriken catapult. The shuriken catapult's been nerfed a little bit as well. But they are the only long-range shooting in the team, and they do play into one of the tactical tac ops that we'll see later. A really easy tac op to score. So, if you look at the map and you go, well, look, there's one, especially if you're playing the mission where you have to stand on the objectives every turn, at least stand a guy on there that can contribute something by firing his shuriken catapult up the field, right? It's the only ranged gun that you're going to have in the team. So there is that to think about, okay? And then you've got the Banshees and the Scorpions. So it's really hard because these are guys that are doing the same job, So the Scorpions have got this 4-5 damage, but with Mandy Blasters. So the first attack can do 7. So against 7 wound teams, Vet Guard and the like, that's very compelling because all your guys can just decapitate their guys in combat. But generally speaking, your Howling Banshee is going to be a better choice against everything that isn't a 7-wound team, right? Because it's effectively one less point of damage on the first crit, but 1 more point of damage on the second crit, right? But also they have lethal 5-up, so you're more likely to get that crit or second crit, and you have the Banshee mask, so you're more likely to survive because they're going to get less hits on you. So really difficult one to weigh up. I think if I was building one, if I wasn't using a roster, I'd say Banshees. I think that they are the best, but there's definitely going to be situations where the Scorpions come out on top. And then I think you take 1 or 2 Dire Avengers, especially on the mission where is it capture or is it the other? I always make loot is loot, and then there's capture and control, and I forget which is the one where you have to camp on the objective, and if you're playing that, you definitely want Dire Avenger, I would think. But we can't just look at the legislates in isolation, so we looked at them now. We're going to look at them again once we've explained all the aspect techniques. So we've seen this rule before. This was on Warcom. There's a big set of aspect techniques. There's 15 of them, 5 for each aspect, and each model can use Each aspect, or each model can use an aspect technique once per activation, and you can't use one more than once per turning point. But if you have all Scorpions or all Banshees or all Dire Avengers, you can use two. You can use, they're twice per turning point, right? Which is quite good, because at first you look at it and think, well, that's because it's an 8-model team, and there's only 5 of them. So, you'd have to double up to get them. But some of them are really worth doubling up. But it's worth holding in your head if you're playing these teams that every model should be using some kind of aspect technique every time you activate it, because you have enough to do that. You're not going to run out, right? You're not going to run out. So let's look at the striking Scorpions first. So they have Patient Stalk, Sudden Blow. Use this aspect technique when a friendly striking Scorpion operative with a Conceal order performs the normal move action. During the action, the operative can and must move within engagement range of one or more enemy operatives, but cannot finish the move there. One enemy operative it moves within engagement range of suffers D3 plus 2 mortal wounds. I would say that's situational, because it's how often are you going to want to do that versus not never, but it is situational, and you could definitely have entire games where that never came up, right? I think. Merciless Strikes. Use this aspect technique at the start of a resolved successful hit step of a fight action performed by a friendly striking Scorpion operative. If you retain any critical hits until the end of that combat, the operative's melee weapons gain the stun critical rule. I mean, yeah, it's quite good, but I always ignore stun when I'm evaluating melee weapons, because maybe it's not because I'm not a very good player, but I can never fully fix in my brain what stun actually does. It's like, oh, the first stun, you can discard one of their normal hits, but not a crit, and then the second stun, you can minus one of their APL in case they survive the combat, and it's such a situational rule in combat is stun. It's not bad, but it's not brilliant, right? Scorpion's Eye. Use this aspect technique when a friendly striking Scorpion operative performs the shoot action. Until the end of that shooting action, the operative's twin shuriken pistols or shuriken pistol gains indirect, and the operative must make a shooting attack with it against an enemy operative in cover. I mean, oh good. My 3/4 dice rending pistol is indirect. I mean, it's not nothing. But I don't think it's brilliant, right? Now, there are 2 really good ones, so we're going to look at one with the Gloom. Use the aspect technique when a friendly striking Scorpion operative moves within 1 inch of a light or heavy terrain feature until the start of its next activation. When that operative has a Conceal order, it's always treated as having a Conceal order regardless of any other rules, e.g. Vantage Point. Yes, absolutely. And if you took all striking Scorpions, I could see you easily using this one twice as well. Super Conceal is great. It's great to be able to use a barricade and be hidden from a guy on a Vantage Point. That's something that comes up really all the time in Kill Team. Good for positioning in turn 1 and getting your guys up the field. I like it. And then Strike and Fade. Use this aspect technique after a friendly striking Scorpion operative with an engage order incapacitates an enemy operative in combat and is now more than blue from enemy operatives. Change the friendly operative's order to Conceal, and you can immediately perform a free dash action with it. You can do so even if it's performed an action during an activation that prevents it from performing a dash action, e.g. a charge action. So, on the face of it, this looks very situational, like you'd have to have won a combat and then there'd be a guy that could shoot you and then you can conceal to get away from it, but it's not really about the flipping to conceal, it's about getting a free extra dash after a charge that gets you really up the field and potentially onto an objective or behind some obscuring terrain or whatever it is. So again, I think Strike and Fade is pretty good. And definitely, if you were playing out the box, you're playing pure striking Scorpions, I can see that with your models, you'd want to use Strike and Fade and one with the Gloom. I could see you using both of those twice for 4 of your models. Unfortunately, you've still got the other 4 that are going to have to make use of the other abilities or not do anything. And I feel like the other abilities are too situational for you to get that much use out of them. Let's look at the Banshees. So I think the Banshees have the best slate of aspect abilities, which whether that makes up for some of the things that I said before. There's Mandy Blasters is really good. So does the Banshees having the best, I think it's the best aspect ability, does that make up for the slightly less effectiveness at a lot of wound break points? I don't know. but they have really good abilities. So there's the Woe. Use this aspect technique during a friendly Howling Banshee operative's activation. After it's performed the charge action, incapacitated enemy operative in combat and is no longer within engagement range of an enemy operative, perform a free charge action with that friendly operative using any remaining increments of movement from the first charge action. So a little bit of bookkeeping here. You're going to have to write down when you charge, like, how many things have you got, and then resolve the combat. And if you win, you're like, great, I've got this much movement left. Should I wish to turn on the Woe? So that is annoying, but bear in mind that you can potentially have charged. They've got a ploy we'll look at later on to give them an extra inch on the movement as well, so you can make use of that. And of course, if you do this with the Howling Banshee Exarch, you can charge, fight, do another charge with the balance of your movement, and fight again, and fight again. Because you've got 3 APL, right? And you wait, is that how it works? Let me have a look here. Hang on. Let me not jump the gun. It's a free charge action, so it doesn't cost an APL, right? Yes. So you charge, fight. You could do that with the Exarch, because the Exarch can fight twice. I think everybody else can spend let me just have a look here. Blade wins, so everybody else can spend a CP to do a second fight as well. So that's not bad. If the situation comes up, like, that's not bad. Rain of Tears. Use this aspect in the resolve successful hit phase of a combat after an active friendly operative, Howling Banshee operative, strikes with a critical hit. Immediately perform a free dash or fallback option with the operative up to blue as though it had fly. Any remaining attack dice are discarded, right? You know that bit where you get into a combat and you roll the dice and you look at them and you're like, shit, I'm going to die because he's rolled really hot? Resolve a crit and then just leave. Bonus points. If because it has fly, you can leave and be on top of something. And then just be like, oh. Obviously it's going to depend on who's got the next turn as to how good that is. But at least it gives you a chance of staying alive in that situation where, your dice are just really bad and their dice. As long as you get 1-5 up, to get that crit, which on 4 dice with lethal 5 up, you should be able to get a crit, and you've always got a CP reroll potentially. So it's a good way of getting out of a bad situation. I quite like that as well. Scream that steals. Use the aspect technique at the start of a resolved successful hit step of a combat involving a friendly Howling Banshee operative. If you retained any successful hits, resolve 1 successful hit before the attacker. It must be used to parry. Look, it's old. We've seen this rule before for a lot of things, but it's good. And you don't have to be... You can use it, just to be clear, because some people still don't know this stuff, you can use this when you're the attacker to parry and then hit, right? If that's what you want to do. Or you can use it when you're charged to parry before they then get to do anything. So it works both ways round. Always nice, I think. Always nice. The Shriek that kills is a bit of a miss. Like, they can't all be bangers. The Shriek that kills, basically it's use it when you're going to perform a shoot action. At the end of the shooting attack, you're armed with and must use the following ranged weapon. So it's 6 dice, hitting on 3s, 1-2 damage, range red, indirect, no cover, torrent and stun. Like, you might use it. Especially, it does have Torrent 1, so, and indirect and no cover, so it works how you want a flamer type thing to work, in that you just go, well, these guys over here, behind this wall, like they can just get lost, and then they all take chip damage and are potentially stunned, which is not bad. It can really disrupt what your opponent's going to do, but it is a very rare thing for it to come up, and I don't think, I don't know if your opponent's going to oblige you to cluster up models like that all the time. But when it comes up, you'll enjoy it, I'm sure. And 6 dice isn't bad, And an acrobatic. Use the aspect technique when a friendly Howling Banshee operative performs an action in which it moves. It performs an action that had fly, but it can't move more than 3 circles. So if you charge, right... You can only charge 3 circle if you're doing a fly charge. You don't get the 4th circle of the charging fly, unfortunately. Normal movement characteristics still apply, e.g. if you're injured. So if you're injured, you go down to 2. If you were doing a charge while injured, you'd get the 3 because you'd lose the 1, but then it would be capped at 3 anyway, so you're not fussed, right? But I think they're all really good. Like, the thing that pulls me around is maybe I've been talking about it on the channel for ages. Maybe doing a pure handling bandage team is like, oh, just if there's one set of abilities where you occasionally want to double up, like I'll have 2 guys that can fly. I'll have 2 guys that can parry before they resolve successful hits. I'll have 2 guys that can charge again after they've fought with the remainder of their movement. Those all seem like things that would potentially come up in turn 2 and turn 3. Certainly, 2 flyers will come up in turn 1, right, for positioning. Absolutely, they would. Dire Avengers. I'm not a big fan of these either. Sorry. The Slicing Hurricane. Use this aspect technique during a friendly Dire Avengers operative's normal move action. Perform a shoot, and then you can during the normal move, and then you can use the rest of your normal move. It's good. It means you can do pop out and fall back attacks and things, and still be on your objective and pop out and pepper with shots and fall back. Like, it's not bad. But you've only got a shuriken catapult, so only 3-4 damage. It's not the best gun. If you had a plasma gun, it'd be busted. But you've got a shuriken, so it's like, well, it's fine. And of course, if you're doing that, if you're popping out, shooting and popping back, you're not overwatching and you're not leveraging your defensive tactics, are you? Just a thought. Raging Heat of the Dying Flame. Use this aspect any when a friendly Dire Avenger operative that's injured or has its APL negatively modified is activated. Until the start of the operative activation, ignore those modifiers and it cannot be injured. Yeah, fine, good, comes up. But then again, this would be really good on a guy that you wanted to do things with and press forward. On the guy that's sitting in the back going, I'm on the objective and I'm occasionally firing a shot down range. Like, he's going to struggle to use all 3 of his APL a lot of the time anyway, or so I would have thought. Death of 1,000 Blades. Yes, Death of 1,000 Blades is great because it lives in something to do with his APL. You can fight twice. Yeah? The other target has to be within circle of the first target, but let's be fair, you probably weren't killing your first target with your shuriken catapult shot, but with 2 shuriken catapult shots, you're probably going to kill that target, so that's nice. And certainly if you've taken 1 or 2 Dire Avengers, I would imagine that one of them is Death of 1,000 Bladesing every single time there's an option to do so. That makes them almost useful. Unstinting Immovable. Use the aspect in the roll defense dice step of a shooting attack made against a friendly Dire Avenger operative. If you retain a critical save and discard 1 or more failed saves, select one or more failed saves to be retained as a successful normal save as well. That's going to come up when you're shot. So that's fine, isn't it? Like, yeah. Good. Good. It's going to be interesting, isn't it? Because if you go first it's 1 per turning point. So if you go first in the turning point and you've used Death of 1,000 Blades, you don't then have access to Unstinting Immovable. If they've gone first and you've used Unstinting Immovable, they've conned you out of your ability to do Death of 1,000 Blades. So there's a little bit of a tension there. Vigilance of the Avenger. Use this aspect operative when a friendly Dire Avenger operative performs the shoot action until the end of the shooting attack. The shuriken catapult, shuriken pistol, or twin shuriken catapult gains no cover, and the operative must make a shooting attack against an enemy operative in cover. No cover is solidly fine. Like, well, yeah, it's good, but you're buffing a gun that does not have that massive amount of base damage, right? It's fine. It's a fine weapon that's fine. It's fine. Equipment. So, right, here's the thing. You have Rune of Prophecy for 1 EP. Once per battle, after rolling off to determine initiative, you can add or subtract 1 from your results. That's really good. And there's no argument you can't. There's no reason you couldn't add 1. If you both rolled 6s, you could add 1 to a 7 as well. It doesn't say you can't go over a 6. So, 1 EP to occasionally potentially get the first turn when you need it. And it's not like, it's not a re-roll. It's just, you can look at the dice, and if you can do it, you can do it. If you get it is situational, but it's only 1 EP, so it's quite good. Rune of Foresight. I was a bit down on Rune of Foresight, but then I read the ploys properly and realised how CP hungry this team could be. So when you reveal the equipment, select one of your opponent's strategic ploy, not command reroll, and the first time they use that ploy, you can gain 1 CP. I mean, most teams, not every team, most teams have a key ploy that definitely going to want to use, so it's definitely going to be a CP. If you attach it to a ploy that's really key to their team and it makes them not want to use it to not give you a CP, then I dare say that you've got an advantage anyway. There will be some teams that don't care and just go, I won't use that one then, that's fine. But for most teams, there is usually some key ploy you can attach that to. Rune of Shielding for a massive 3 EP. Rune of Shielding once per battle when the operative fights in combat or makes shooting attacks made against it in the resolve successful hit step of that shooting. Attack, you can ignore the damage inflicted from one attack dice. It's just a scratch, you just give it to your Exarch, so your Exarch can live a bit longer while they are running up the field trying to carry your team, basically. Yeah, why not? And then you've got Wraithbone Talisman, which is a purity seal, effectively. So it's once per battle. When you fight in combat, make a shooting attack, or shooting attacks made against it, you can use the command reroll without spending any command points. And then Shadow Weave Grenade. It's a smoke grenade, right? It's just got a funny name. And the Plasma Grenade is the sort of halfway house between a frag and a crack that Eldar are quite famous for having. That's 3 EP. So what am I going to take? Well, I'm always going to want to take Rune of Prophecy and Rune of Shielding, I think. So there's 4 of my EP spent. I've got 6 left. It's really tough because if you take the Rune of Foresight, and I think maybe that's a good deal because it's 1 EP for 2. It's 1 EP for 2 CP, but for 1 CPU, sorry. But it's not, is it? It's really 3 EP because then you're stuck buying 2 sets of weaponized Penelope, which is fine if you've got 2 Dire Avengers. But even then, you wouldn't take it anyway, would you? Because why would you want to upgrade your Dire Avengers fists? Like, it might come in, but if it comes in, and if they're in your back line, punching your Dire Avenger, you're already having a bad day, right? Or you could go for grenades. Smoke grenades are great, especially for your team which doesn't have much in the way of shooting. Plasma grenade indirect is always good. What am I going to take? I don't know. I'm probably going to take Rune of Shielding and Rune of Prophecy, and then a smoke grenade, and then I'm going to want to take a plasma grenade, but I'm actually probably going to decide to take Rune of Foresight because I think the CP will come in. I think it might be worth 3 equipment points, effectively. And then if I've got any, I don't tend to buy any Dire Avengers for me personally, but if I had any Dire Avengers running a mixed team, of course you give 2 Dire Avengers the Penelope with the balance. But of course, let me know what you think. I'm not going to take Wraithbone Talisman. 3 EP for a command reroll is not particularly worthwhile to me, I don't think. Unless you're playing on Into the Dark and you take the view that you don't really need the grenades on Into the Dark at all, because they're pretty useless, then you could take Wraithbone Talisman just because you're running out of things to spend your points on, right? Ploys. So they got a lot of ploys. Eminent Grace. 1 CP. Add 1 to the movement characteristic of Friendly Blades of Khaine operatives. Friendly Blades of Khaine operatives can move around, across and over other Friendly Blades of Khaine operatives and their bases as if they were not there, but cannot finish the move on top of them or their bases. Really good on Into the Dark, where you can sometimes get stuck in a queue, but +1 inch movement's always good, right? So the temptation is to turn that on every turn, right? 4-1. Until the end of the turning point, each time a shooting attack is made against a ready friendly Blades of Khaine operative in the roll defense dice step of that shooting attack, you can re-roll one of your defense dice. So it's a really good defensive ability, and again, the temptation is to use it every single turn, but then you're going to start to run out of CP, and it's a tough one, because when do you know when to use it? Because nobody ever plans to be shot, right? Nobody looks at a game of Kill Team and goes, I think I'm going to get shot this turn, better turn on my forward. Everyone always thinks they've positioned their models in such a way where they're not going to be shot, so, and then they're being shot, it's like, oh yeah, no, he can do that, okay, cool. So what do? You just turn it on every turn in case and then run out of CP, or not turn it on and then someone has a shot on you that you didn't quite see and you go, oh, I've only had 4-1 turned on. It's a tough one. Ruthless Poise. I mean, until the end of the turning point, each time an active friendly Blades of Khaine operative fights in combat against an enemy operative in the roll attack dice step of that combat, you can reroll 1 of your attack dice for 1 CP on a combat team. Yes, please. like, you'd spend 1 CP for a command reroll, so spend 1 CP to give your whole team rerolls in combat, the thing that they want to be doing, like, the most. Yeah, again, probably not in turn 1, unless you're feeling very ruthless, but turn 2 and 3, you're going to want to spend for ruthless points, aren't you? Khaine's Vengeance is bobbins because it's to do with shooting, so until the end of the turning point each time a friendly Blades of Khaine operative makes a shooting attack against an enemy operative that isn't ready, in the roll attack dice phase of the shooting attack you can re-roll 1 of your attack dice. Not only does it, like, you're not really a shooting team, so you don't care that much, but then it has the extra bit of crippling to go, it's only against enemies that aren't ready, where Ruthless Poise has no such problem, so you're never penning the CP for this, right? Especially because you want to spend your CP. You could easily want to spend 3 CP in turn 2 to do Eminent Grace, Forewarned, and Ruthless Poise, right? I don't know whether you've got the CP to do that, but you could want to. You could want to spend 2 in turn 1 to do Eminent Grace and Forewarned, and now you've just spent all your CP. So, what are you going to do? And then you've got tactical ploys to consider, and annoyingly, the tactical ploys are also good. So you've got Blade Wind and Starfall, which is effectively fight twice and shoot twice. I mean, you're probably not going to want to shoot twice very often, but it could come up. But fight twice for a CP, yeah. Especially if you've got Banshees and you've got that ability to charge, fight, charge. If you're not the Exarch, I can see what to keep a CP in your pocket for Blade Wind. Fading Light, a bit situational, probably not going to use it that often. So 1 CP, use it when an operative is activated. At the end of the activation, you can fall back for 1 less action point. Fine. And then Contempt. Contempt is bonkers funny. It's situational and funny, right? 1 CP. Use this tactical ploy in the roll attack dice step of either combat when a friendly Blades of Khaine operative is not the active operative, or a shooting attack made against a friendly Blades of Khaine operative. For that combat or shooting attack, your opponent cannot re-roll their attack dice. Note that you use this tactical ploy after seeing the results of your opponent's initial roll, but before re-rolls. If your opponent declared the use of a command reroll tactical ploy, it's cancelled and the command point is refunded. Now, this is interesting. You're going to have to speak really quickly, because you know how many people just goes, oh, I rolled this, oh, I reroll one for Relentless. Like you're going to have to be like, whoa, contempt, I do 1 CP. Like, I'm going to reroll, oh, but because you can't see once they've picked up the dice and rolled it, you can't play it. So you're going to have to really get in there and go, wait, I need to think about this. It kind of is going to interrupt the flow of the game when people are doing their Relentless and things rerolls axiomatically. Obviously, when the use of the command point rerolls, it more of a, I spend a CP for a command point, and then you've got a natural time to say, well, actually, I spend a CP and you can't, but you get your CP back. That's fine. But the ones that are kind of automatic in their mind, I've got this with the rerolls, they're going to go, and then you need to wait and look at the dice and go, actually, because if the reroll is free, they're not even going to look at their pool of dice and go, is it worth re-rolling it? They're just going to be like, well, I've got a re-roll. Whereas you might look at it and go, well, they've got 4 misses, so I don't need to spend a CP to prevent their re-roll. But so that's always a tough one when you've got to kind of get in there socially and go, oh, hang on. Before you re-roll that, I need to think about this for a second. And obviously, as this team becomes more popular, an accommodating opponent will be like, oh, they'll probably want to do this. So you go like, I'm thinking about, I'm going to re-roll a dice and give them the second to kind of go, oh, actually, I want to do this. So a little bit of maths and probability involved there, and a little bit of trying to get your elbow in and interrupt their train of thought a little bit. But a powerful ploy, if a bit socially awkward to use. Tac Ops. So 3 Tac Ops. Aspect Warfare. If a friendly Dire Avenger, friendly Howling Banshee, and friendly Striking Scorpion inflict damage on enemy operatives during the same turning point, you score 1 VP. If you achieve the first condition in a subsequent turning point, you score 1 VP. Seems difficult to do, right? Like, do you get to inflict damage with 3 operatives in 2 turning points often? Or your games, my games are often cagier than that, and they have a big bloodbath turn 2. But I don't think I'm scoring that one very often. Okay, usually I'm doing a lot of damage in 1 turn, or if I'm having a good day. Master Techniques. If you use all 5 aspect techniques from an aspect in any turning point, e.g. all 5 Striking Scorpion aspect techniques, you score 1 VP. You have to actually use them, e.g. for Vigilance and the Avenger, you have to actually make a shooting attack against an enemy operative in cover. I would only take these in if I was running pure Banshees. Like Banshees have good aspect powers, and even then, if we go back to the Banshees for a second, here's a question for you. Answer in the comments. Using the logic, if you must actually use each aspect technique, and then the example, which doesn't help us. So acrobatic, which gives you fly, pretty hard to actually use that on an Into the Dark game, right? So I don't think I would take this at all on Into the Dark, and I think it's only really worthwhile if you've taken a mono build team, and I think Banshees are the only ones where you're going to really want to spam all the different aspect techniques. And then the other side of the coin, Marital Harmony here is possibly one of the easiest tack ops in the game if you've got the team build for it. So reveal this tack up in the target reveal step of any turning point. At the end of the turning point, check the following 3 criteria. A Dire Avenger operative controls an objective marker. A friendly Striking Scorpion operative is within red of an enemy operative. And a friendly Howling Banshee operative is within red of your opponent's drop zone. Now, that would seem difficult, but then the next thing says, at the end of the turning point, if at least 2 of the 3 criteria are true, you score 1 VP. So you've got your Dire Avenger in your backline on your objective, and otherwise your combat pieces are vaguely playing the game, right? And you're going to score that. So if you build a mixed team and you've got the Dire Avengers to do it, you'd always take Marital Harmony. Otherwise, you'd take Master Techniques, perhaps, if you were doing pure Banshees, but not on Into the Dark, because how are you... I suppose you could fly over a placed barricade, but there are very few opportunities to move with fly and argue that you've actually used it, actually derived a benefit from having fly. Right? I suppose you could use it to fly over a friendly operative or an enemy operative, or then if you have also turned on Eminent Grace, you're going to get into a real argument of have you actually used it? Not that cut and dry, right? Whereas on open board, you could just fly over a random wall. Doesn't have to be a tactically sound use, but you've actually used it. So... Difficult. And what if you fly over a barricade that you totally would have had the movement to move over? Basically, that's a burning question for me. What counts as actually using the fly one specifically? I'm sure there are others that are also a bit weird with that. Anyway, builds. So I think you go 2 ways. All Banshees, which is what I'm still on the fence a little bit, because I don't know if actually sensible head-on. I think the way to play this team is to buy a fuckload of miniatures, obviously, and roster deep, and to deeply calculate what's the best against a particular matchup based on their wound breakpoint and things like that. But I think all Banshees could be okay, and I quite like the idea as a project, right? So all Banshees, probably with an Executioner, if I'm only rostering 1 leader, and a Sure Pistol. But if you're doing all Banshees, you'd probably... you'd have 2 spare models, right? So if nothing else, you could just build all 3 leaders. You'd have to slightly convert 1, but yeah. Or you could do a mixed list. I would go Striking Scorpion for an all-comers build. I would go Striking Scorpion Exarch, 2 Dire Avengers, 3 Banshees, and then either 2 more Banshees or 2 Striking Scorpions. The reason I do it that way is because I want to have max Banshees... majority Banshees, so I can access Recon, because Recon's pretty good. All Striking Scorpions could be great against a 7-wound team, but you're not going to take Infiltration. But you have still got Seek and Destroy to fall back on, and Seek and Destroy is not bad. Final thoughts. I'm tempted to do all Banshees, but I'm really not sure. So let me know your thoughts down below. Should I do an all Banshees team, or do you think this is a team where you need to roster deep and do mixed lists? Or maybe you think I've really shortchanged all Striking Scorpions, and you can see a really good list for them. You think the Banshees are bobbins and the Mandy Blasters really carry it for the Scorpions. That's fine too. I'd be interested to know if anybody thinks all Dire Avengers is a viable list. Feel free to tell me that my opinions are wrong. I know there's a lot of people that don't like this list. I think that this kill team, because they're 40k Eldar players and they have grumbles about how, in the lore, Aspect Warriors are supposed to be really powerful and they're not powerful enough. I think the team feels balanced to me. I think if you gave them gave Striking Scorpions 5 attacks and gave Dire Avengers, better guns and buffed them back up to where Companion was, and gave Striking Scorpions their 3-up save, which is all things the law says they should have. That might make the team a bit good. And I understand the complaint, like then they should find other ways of making it less powerful, maybe less bodies or something like that. But yeah, it's an interesting one. It would have been interesting if this had a slot mechanic like Old White Dwarf teams, where maybe some of the, I don't know if this would work, but like it's interesting they tried to make everything a 1-to-1-to-1. Maybe some things are worth 2 slots, and some things, or if you take 2 of these, you can take 3 of these or 2 of these. I don't know, because maybe you could do it that way. But it is what it is. I think it's a good list. I kind of want to do an all Banshees team. I'm still on the fence. Try and persuade me one way or the other. All right, guys. Well, I hope you've enjoyed your Boxing Day? Is that when I'm releasing this video? I'm still here on the 23rd recording all of these for the week while I'm away. I think this is, hope you had a good Christmas. And I hope that you had a great Boxing Day. And I hope you enjoyed the video. And come back on Thursday when we'll cover Space Marine Scouts. All right, guys. Have a good one. Bye-bye. 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 Cheerio. Bye-bye.